some of the plans we got going forward. We're very interested in recruiting people to help us get everybody in the state riled up, excited about voting, excited about electing officials that will represent us and not represent corporate interests. Make sure that our president is the richest man in the world. Some of his rich buddies. So it's so important that we get together now and work to make sure that people recognize the common people of this state and of this nation. It's so important that people realize that we are the reason why we got a country. The numbers out here today is important to make sure everybody realizes that everybody is not on board with pushing back on Medicaid, taking food from kids so they can't have a decent meal during the day. They rather give it to Elon Musk. Let him stack money on top of money. So we need to make sure that we stand up for the rights of our rights and other citizens in this state and in this nation. So I'm out here today and I'm fired up, and I want to make sure everybody else leave here fired up with intent to make a difference in the lives of their family and the community they live in. It's very important, very important. So one thing I got to mention to y'all today is we need funds to do that. So if you can support Carolina Ball, please do. The amount of water we bring out, the lack of chairs, lack of at some of the larger things, we didn't have porta potties. All of that stuff depends on us supporting each other to make these things happen. So when you can, donate to Carolina Ball. I'm not talking, I worked for Bernie Sanders during this campaign back in 2016. And he made a living off $27. $10 versus somebody giving him $35, it all averaged out to be $27. So anything you can do to help us get what we need to be, please contribute. I also want to make sure everybody's aware of the fact that we got another event on the 26th where we're going to be working with South Carolina Disabilities Association and all the groups. Also, we'll be working with Alliance for Retired Americans to honor people. We're going to be honoring the 88, I think it's at like 25 years anniversary. And Medicaid been in existence for 6 years on July 30th. So on the 26th, we're going to celebrate those two activities and the leadership from that generation. It's a shame that we can't have leaders like that today. People like Lyndon B. Johnson and FDR, they made a difference in the lives of average people. They made a difference in the lives of working class people. We don't have that. We need to get that back. Talking about making something great. Let's make each other great by making sure we support each other. I want to thank you. I appreciate that because it's so important. I want to introduce Catherine Fleming Bruce. She's going to come up and talk a little bit about John Lewis. And if I can find two recruits to come up and hold my banner so we can get at least one picture of Catherine Bruce speaking in front of the cameras. Anybody willing to help? Catherine?
All right, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Friends, fellow activists, warriors. We got any warriors out here? Let's make some noise. All right. Well, I'm Catherine Fleming Bruce. I'm an author. I'm a preservationist. And I want to thank everyone here for coming out today because of your ongoing commitment to justice, freedom, and democracy. That's why we're here today. I want to thank Carolina for All. I want to thank 50501 for putting this event together. Thank you all. And I'm here to talk about the person who is the reason that people are gathered here in South Carolina at the State House, at other venues around the state, and at over 1,500 events around the country. Today, July 17th, is the 5th anniversary of the death of U.S. Representative John Lewis. Let's hear it for John Lewis, everyone. What do we remember about John Lewis? His family told us upon his death, he was honored and respected as the conscience of the U.S. Congress and an icon of American history. He was a stalwart champion in the ongoing struggle to demand respect for the dignity and worth of every human being. He dedicated his entire life to nonviolent activism and was an outspoken activist in the struggle for equal justice in America. On the day that John Lewis died in 2020, that was the same day as Reverend C.T. Lewis passed away. What was happening? We had the pandemic. We had our nation grappling with the death of George Floyd. We had the Black Lives Matter protests, and some of you all were out there for those protests. Put your hand up if you were out there. And we participated in that march even back then. John Lewis was the U.S. representative for Georgia's 5th Congressional District for more than 3 decades. He was the embodiment and example of the nonviolent fight for civil rights. His passionate speeches were backed up by a long record of action that included, by his count, 40 arrests while demonstrating against racial and social injustice. Who out here has been arrested? Anybody out here been arrested for a cause? Okay, we stand here today in relative safety. But everyone who came out in the 60s was risking everything. John Lewis was a follower and colleague of Martin Luther King Jr., a participant in lunch counter sit-ins. In the early 60s, he rode with the Freedom Riders to end segregated buses. He did the same thing as South Carolina native Sarah Mae Fleming. Put up your hand if you heard of Sarah Mae Fleming. Put up your hand if you heard of Rosa Parks. Okay. At the tender age of 23, John Lewis was a keynote speaker at the historic 1963 March on Washington. He said, "We don't want our freedom to be gradual. We want freedom now." When do we want our freedom? Now. At age 25, Lewis helped lead a march for voting rights across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, where he and other marchers were not met by the press, as you and I are today. They were met by a policeman with clubs, fracturing John Lewis's skull, and images from Bloody Sunday many of us have seen. But the nation saw Bloody Sunday. Just like the nation are seeing you today. The nation is seeing people across the country come out to stand up for justice. John Lewis says, "I gave a little blood on that bridge. I thought I was going to die, but instead, he carried on for us." Lewis was born on a cotton farm in segregated America in 1940 in Troy, Alabama. He lived to see a black man elected president. Something he thought he would never see, even though he was out there on the battleground. He said to his students, and I say to you, when you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation to do something, a moral obligation to say something. And Dr. King inspired us to do that. Although he says also, sometimes when I look back and think about it, how did we do what we did? How did we succeed? We didn't have a website. We didn't have a cell phone. But I felt that when we were sitting in those lunch counters, when we were riding on those freedom rides, are marching from Selma to Montgomery, there was a power and a force. God Almighty was with us there. And I wonder if we feel that way today. Do you feel that you're alone in a desert, voices crying out in the wilderness? Or do you believe that there's a power and a force with us today? I believe it. I believe there's a power and a force with us today. And here today, we find ourselves no less in the belly of the beast than Lewis was in 1960. Our young people who join the National Guard to serve their country find themselves being used as handmaids of violent crackdowns against anyone suspected of being an illegal alien. They find themselves the instruments by which people are detained, tortured, and dehumanized. We find ourselves in a time when second-class citizenship is normalized. Removal of rights is normalized. Erosion and dismantling of the public good, the common good, and the safety net is normalized. It has become an evil and unholy thing that must end. Those who bring us here today, in the name of John Lewis, Public Citizen, Transformative Justice Coalition, so many others, have rung this bell since John Lewis's death. But no greater urgency can we imagine than what we are seeing today. We are each called to make a stand in our own way. Individuals like you, organizations like the ones out here with tents, have all answered the call. I, as a lifelong activist, have answered the call of the U.S. electoral system, and I stand before you as a candidate for the United States Senate to challenge Lindsey Graham in 2026. And one of your jobs as people committed to democracy, we have to make sure that the process of democracy is not mocked in 2026. A candidate who bowed out of the race yesterday says we have to support a party's choice. I disagree. The people of South Carolina will support the people's choice for U.S. Senate. The people's choice. So I ask you all today to make sure your friends and your members know who the candidates are, what they stand for, what's at stake in this election. And what we know that's at stake, the end of kings, the end of authoritarianism, the end of oligarchy, the end of trying to destroy our poor and our marginalized. So I want you to join me in this chant as I end my comments. There are no kings if we refuse to bow. Say it with me. There are no kings. There are no kings if we refuse to bow. Let's hear it. There are no kings if we refuse to bow. Excellent. Well, I'm Catherine Fleming Bruce. You can find me on CatherineFlemingBruce.com. I'd love to have your support, and I'm with you in the good trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Man, it's a little bit warm out here. The good news is about the day is that this is going to be over with like about 1 o'clock, right? So, just think if you were here at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I started off wearing my white shirt and tie as I usually do to celebrate this particular day, just like Mr. Lewis did so many years ago. He was always under that. And everybody did back in the 60s. But you know what? I took that tie off. Sometimes before 10 o'clock, because it is warm today. A person who's been increasingly on the scene, she's South Carolina Democratic Party Hispanic Council Chair, and also the second Vice Chairman of the party. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayra Alvarez.
afternoon. We gather today in front of the South Carolina State House not only to remember, but to reignite. Today we stand on the shoulders of a giant, John Lewis, a man of unwavering courage, moral clarity, and relentless dedication to justice. To honor Congressman John Lewis, it is to steer our moral courage. It is to lace up our shoes, ready to make what he called good trouble, the necessary trouble, in the pursuit of dignity, justice, and full democracy. John Lewis was not just a symbol of the civil rights movement. Thank you. But a relentless architect of human rights. From Bloody Sunday in Selma to the halls of Congress, his legacy tells us plainly, the right to vote must be protected because it is constantly under threat. In 2025, South Carolina finds itself against a crossroads. Across our nation, cynical forces are working hard to restrict access to the ballot, especially for women, blacks, immigrants, and working families. The fight that John Lewis waged in 1960 continues today, and we must pick up his torch. That is why the SAFE Act, a cruel, calculated attempt by Republicans in Congress to block new citizens from voting, is not just a policy proposal. It is voter suppression in disguise. And I said this as a proud daughter of Puerto Rico, as the second vice chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, as the chair of our party Hispanic Council, as someone who believes in democracy with a big D and a big heart. This bill is un-American and is unworthy of John Lewis' legacy. Let us talk about how women, especially women of color and working mothers, are being pushed out of our democracy. New voters ID laws, closing polling places, and purge voter rolls are designed to silence our voices. But sister, we will not be silenced. Women lead our homes, women lead our communities, and women will lead at the ballot box. But this fight is more about ballots. It is about basic human rights. What is happening now, right now, is nothing short of a betrayal to our everyday Americans and working families. The harmful policies, divisive rhetoric, and outright hate targeting our communities, my community, has put this nation in a state of chaos. These policies and rhetoric manipulate fear and fuel division, turning communities against one another. South Carolina Latino communities are essential to our workforce. We are in the kitchens and construction sites, in the fields and factories, in hotels and hospitals. Latino workers are not invisible. We are not disposable. We are essential, and we are South Carolinians too. This big ugly bill create a slush fund of $30 billion for Trump out-of-control deportation force, tripling its 2024 annual budget. ICE misuse of its authority, directed by the Trump administration, has resulted in reckless and unfair actions against immigrants, U.S. citizens, and public officials. ICE officers snatch students off the street for exercising their freedom of speech, detain U.S. citizens without regard to rights, detain deported U.S. citizen children, including a 4-year-old with cancer. The Trump administration will have vastly more power and resources to swell a deportation force that makes no distinction between violent criminal records and hardworking people. More than 75% of the people detained has no criminal records. And yes, we see you, Nancy Mace. While working families across South Carolina are struggling to afford housing, childcare, and health care, while women are fighting for the basic right to control their own bodies, you are out there proposing that we build a flowing prison full of alligators. Yes, you heard right, alligator Alcatraz, here in South Carolina. Instead of fighting for affordable health care and Medicaid, SNAP, the first line of defense against hunger, breakfast and lunch for children and schools, clean energy, and no offshore drilling. She wants to spend the taxpayer dollars on a mythical swamp fortress guarded by reptiles to keep immigrants out. This isn't leadership, it's clickbait. This isn't policy, it is a distraction. And it tells us exactly where the priorities lie. Not with the people of the Low Country and South Carolina, but with the fair, right headlines and the cameras. You can claim support women and families while backing the big ugly bill, the worst bill in history in the Congress, attacking immigrant communities and promoting absurd anti-immigrant theatrics like this. South Carolina deserves better. We deserve solutions, no political circus acts. John Lewis once said, when you see something that is not right, that is not fair, that is not just, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. So today, we say something. We say immigrant rights are human rights. We say reproductive freedom is essential freedom. We say voting is a sacred act, not a partisan privilege. And we will do something too. We will organize. We will show up. We will vote because every ballot cast in South Carolina is a strike against injustice. So let us carry John Lewis' memory not as a monument, but as a mission. Let us march from this moment with no despair, but with determination. Because the road to justice is never easy, but as John Lewis taught us, it is always worth it. Thank you. Let's keep marching. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Yeah, another hand, please. and I want to make everybody aware, Carolina Hall is going to put together an effort to make sure South Carolina don't follow behind Florida and create some alligator Alcatraz. You know, we'll come up with something up here to try to get some of that money to imprison people, something that we shouldn't want our hands on to be a part of. So as time goes forward, talk to your state legislators, talk to your senators, talk to the congressional people. Don't bring that to South Carolina. We don't need any prisons, concentration camps, they call them. Not here. We don't want that. Yeah. Our next speaker, you'll come and introduce our next speaker.
Yeah, the most important thing these days, and you hear me say that before the day's over a couple of times, is voting. Voting! The power of the vote. And to talk a little bit more about that and another voting system is the president? President of the Better Ballots, South Carolina, Nicole Sanchez, ladies and gentlemen. Nicole, you've heard her before, you're going to hear her again.
Thank you. Thank you all for being out here today. It is warm, but we are here because we care about our democracy, and we are here to honor the legacy of a great man, of John Lewis. But we are here for more than that. We're here to carry his legacy. John Lewis didn't just show up to fight. He showed up to connect, to bring people together. Bring people together around justice, to turn protest into policy, and to make sure that no one had to cross that bridge alone. We remember Lewis for his courage, but we also need to remember his strategy. He didn't build movements by tearing people down. He built bridges between them, bridges across generations, across ideologies, across fear. That's the spirit that we need now, because today we don't just face broken policy, we face a broken system. Thanks. The system that we have now thrives on division. It punishes compromise. It tells voters to choose between the lesser of two evils instead of instead of promoting leaders that we can actually believe in. That's why I'm here with Better Ballot South Carolina, because ranked choice voting isn't just about ballots. It's about giving our democracy room to breathe. It's about making space for consensus. It's about making room for leaders who can bring people together, not just rile them up. With ranked choice voting, voters get to express their full selves, not just a single binary choice. And candidates have to reach beyond their base. They can't afford to write people off. They have to listen. They have to find common ground. They have to build trust with people who might not list them first, but still might list them. That change gives voters permission to hope again. It's a change that lets people vote for the future they want instead of settling for the one they're least afraid of. Because when voters can rank their choices, something incredible happens. Candidates stop fighting to divide. They start fighting to connect. It turns into, who else can I serve? Who else can I reach? Whose second choice can I earn? And that's not a weakness. That is a strength. That is leadership, and a different kind of leadership, true leadership. One that's rooted in listening, one that lasts longer than a news cycle. We've seen what that can look like. When Zohran Mamdani ran in New York, he didn't just offer slogans. He offered to take their voices, their grievances, their hopes to City Hall. And voters responded. Not just his face, people who ranked him second, third. People who saw themselves reflected in a vision for something better. And Mamdani didn't win alone. He formed a coalition with leaders like Brad Lander, Michael Blake, and Adrian Adams. That coalition didn't happen despite ranked choice voting. It happened because of it. And that's what we can bring to South Carolina. Because if we want different results, we need different incentives. If we want unity, we need a system that rewards unity. Ranked choice voting doesn't just count votes differently, it changes what it means to win. It rewards coalition instead of conflict. It gives power to bridge builders, not bridge burners. And it opens the door to candidates who lead with vision, not with fear. John Lewis reminded us that democracy is not a state, it is an act. He said the vote is precious, that it is almost sacred. And when a system forces you to vote defensively, when it silences new voices or punishes candidates for consensus, then that vote loses power. Ranked choice voting gives us that power back. It allows voters to have a true voice without having to go back for a costly, low-attended runoff. It allows space for third parties to have a voice to be viable. It creates space for consensus, complexity, and coalition. It lets us vote for the future we believe in, not just the one we're least afraid of. So let's make good trouble. Let's reform what's broken. Let's demand a system that reflects not just who we are, but who we can become. We don't need perfect candidates. We need better choices. We don't need saviors. We need systems that serve us. And we don't need to burn it all down. We need to reach across, link arms, and move forward together. That's how we honor the bridge John Lewis crossed. And that's how we carry it forward. Every voice, every vote, every time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Boy, a lot of good information. We want to invite our next speaker up, and we're not going to be real formal. He's going to introduce himself. Sam, come on up from 5051. One of our partners has been working hard to get resist Donald Trump movement here. Hey, Sam.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Thank you to all of y'all that showed up in this heat. I apologize about not being more involved, but it's these weekday protests are hard because, contrary to popular belief, we are not paid to protest. And in this economy, it's hard to find time away from work and not think, I might need this for something else later. I don't know what comes next. So for those of y'all that are still working and took time off, used your paid leave to come out here, thank you for doing something that is that important. So it's John Lewis Day, good trouble. And all I can think is of our unfortunate opposition and their Make America Great Again hats. They wanted to make America great. And I think, how do we make America great? Do we do it by abducting people off the street? Do we do it by shielding billionaires from whatever is on the list that does or does not exist? I just can't wrap my head around how it is okay to not release information to protect but it is okay to abduct people. And if innocents get hurt, it is what it is. It doesn't make sense in my mind. Except for maybe a little quote from Kendrick Lamar, something around, they not like us. They not like us. They are not who we are. They are the 1%. They are the elite. They are the aristocracy, and we would rather protect them than protect our own. And I just don't know how you make America great like that. No, I think actually John Lewis had that right. He's the one that worked to make America great. He fought for equality. That is what makes America great. And I can't help but thinking, as a white man in South Carolina, with all the privilege I have grown up with, I couldn't help but think, man, what would I have done in those circumstances? What would I have done if I was born in Germany? What would I have been done, or what would I have done if I was born in the Jim Crow era? Would I have went against the culture around me to stand up for what is right? I didn't think I'd ever have to figure that out because we fixed that, and here we are going backwards. I don't understand. Why are we going backwards? The fight's already been fought. It's already been won. I think we can agree equality was the right choice. Why now do we bring that into question? Why now do we have, what is it, Tom Holland or Tom Hogan, right, up there saying, well, you know, physical appearance is grounds for, probable cause. Do what? You done lost your damn mind, sir. But however, we put it right. They don't care. They don't care. They not like us. It is not a matter of race at this point. It is absolutely class, and then all that crap added on top of it. And the sooner we realize we all in this together because we got the 1%, is the moment that we will stand up and put this where it belongs, and that's back in history. We've already gotten rid of our titles of nobility. We are all equal under the law. Quit making exceptions. So thank y'all on this important day for coming out, standing up despite the heat for what you know to be right. And we're going to keep on doing this. August, September, October, November, till this man is out of office, or those that have perpetuated this absolute farce are behind bars. We're going to keep at it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I get to introduce Loretta Holloway. Loretta was proclaimed the South Carolina official First Lady of Song by the Senate of South Carolina. She always has performed for the Queen Elizabeth. She's also performed in Las Vegas. Loretta Holloway is going to come up and perform for us today. Hey, y'all cool? Let me hear it. Loretta Holloway. Let's hear it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to see so many of you out here. I was invited at the very last minute, and I'm so glad that I'm here in saluting the courage of Congressman John Lewis. 5 years ago, he passed on this day. I am doing one song for this man who had courage, who had grit, who was beaten. How many of us would go through the things that he went through? I don't even recognize my country anymore. I don't. Thank you very much. John Lewis. To dream the impossible dream, to fight unbeatable foe, and to bear with unbearable sorrow, and to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, and to love pure and chaste from afar, and to try when your arms are too weary to reach that unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, I feel hopeless, no matter how far, and to fight for the right, without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest, my rest. And this world should be better than this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, and to reach the unreachable star. Thank you, Congressman John Lewis. Thank you. The fight continues.
Thank you, man. Great, beautiful voice, beautiful voice. I see why she's a leader and song here in the state. Our next speaker is from the League of Women Voters, Teresa Arnold. And Teresa, if you want to give yourself a little bit more introduction, that'd be fine.
Well, you know what? They didn't have music. The music didn't work for that. So that fantastic singer sang a cappella, and I think it was even better. Another round of applause. So I'm Teresa Arnold. I'm with the League of Women Voters, taking the place of Lynn Teague today. We have our league folks down there. The League of Women Voters of South Carolina, some 2,000 of us, want to get in some good trouble. We might not be as good as John Lewis at getting into some good trouble, but we persist. We persisted yesterday, we persist today, and we will persist tomorrow to work for our civil rights, our education rights, our voting rights, and our health care rights. Even when it's as hot as 3 hells. Sadly, what is going on right now is not a South Carolina problem. It's not a Southern problem. It is a national movement that threatens to bury representative democracy as well as our national commitment to equity and justice. And those are not dirty words, people. The League of Women Voters joins with others here and across the nation to speak out against this destruction of a moral core of our nation. We hear claims of non-citizens voting, of dead people voting. These claims are accompanied by demands for crippling purges of voter rolls. These claims cannot be substantiated, but they will do it to silence our voice. Banning books and threatening teachers is occurring right here in South Carolina in our children's schools. Our public libraries are facing the pressure of censorship. Even worse, agitators are trying to rewrite history, to whitewash our past. It would be ludicrous if it wasn't so frightening. Indeed, the social safety net is being gutted. The Medicaid cuts in Trump's budget bill, along with the elimination of health care premium assistance at the end of this year, is setting a lot of people up for a loss in health care, more than 200,000. Finally, I would also like to say, one of the other areas that really concerns us is our public health system. Vaccines, historically proven effective interventions, are being attacked by anti-vaxxers, and not just in D.C. In South Carolina, some of these few but loud agitators torpedoed the governor's nominee to head the Department of Public Health. These folks didn't like COVID vaccine mandates, so they kept a qualified applicant from being approved. This is the first step to eroding more public health protections, thus threatening our health and that of our children and grandchildren. Well, what can we do? Register to vote, help others register to vote, be a poll worker, attend school board meetings, city councils, county councils, and anywhere elected officials serve to help keep our elected officials accountable. And the league would be happy to get you set up to do that. John Lewis and his brave companions created a more just world through their actions. We must honor their memory and join together to protect what was won so many years ago. And thank y'all very much for being here.
All right, thank you, Teresa Arnold. And actually, I'm going to say a word here. We heard some music scooting in there. Our DJ's been working all morning. There was a technical issue with the music last time he was here. It was blaring loud and clear. But there, technical details are something we all have to deal with from time to time, unfortunately. Let's have a round of applause from Malefi Escari. Came all the way from Spartanburg to do this. Appreciate you, Malefi. We have some water over there with the South Carolina Alliance for Retired Americans, ARA, that tent right there, and of course some other folks may have water. Other tents may have some water out there. Make sure you stay hydrated. I don't do that enough myself. I want to introduce our next guest. She's joined us a couple of times before. Ladies and gentlemen, Zoe Glass. And Zoe is with the South Carolina United for Justice and Equality.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Zoe and I'm here today as an advocate, a neighbor, a veteran, and someone who refuses to be silent while our communities are being attacked from every direction. Both by those who openly despise us and by those who claim to support us, only to shrink away when it matters most. Let's name what we're facing. Across the country, extremist lawmakers are launching a coordinated attack against LGBTQ rights. They're banning healthcare, banning books, banning history. They're trying to erase trans people from public life, bathrooms, schools, IDs, athletics, and even the census. In Texas, while deadly floods devastated communities and families cried out for relief, lawmakers used their emergency session to prioritize a bathroom ban. Not rescue, not housing, not infrastructure, bathrooms. And now, in places like Florida, Kansas, and Wyoming,
we're seeing trans people criminalized, literally arrested for existing in public, for using the restrooms that match who they are, for daring to live. And here's where it gets even harder to swallow. Because while we expect cruelty from far-right extremists, we've come to anticipate it, really, we're now seeing people who call themselves liberal, the party that claims to fight for justice and equality, capitulating to right-wing talking points. They're afraid of being labeled too woke. They're parroting language about parental rights and protecting kids, while distancing themselves from trans youth. They're weakening bills behind closed doors. They're changing messaging on websites. They're hesitating to speak the truth plainly, fearing it might cost them a vote. Let me say this with absolute clarity. You don't protect kids by abandoning them. You don't win votes by repeating your opponent's lies. And you don't get to call yourself a defender of LGBT rights if you're only willing to fight when it's politically convenient. I serve this country. I put on the uniform because I believed in its promise that freedom, dignity, and justice should belong to all of us. But when transgender Americans are banned from military service, I saw that promise break. I stood beside trans service members. They showed courage, grit, and loyalty. The idea that their gender identity made them unfit, that's not just wrong. That's a betrayal of everything we say we stand for. And now those same attacks are playing out in schools, hospitals, state houses, and in silence, in the hesitation of those who claim to be our allies. Being a veteran taught me this. Real courage means standing up when it's hard. It means defending people, not just symbols. It means taking risks, not just calculated comfort. This fight is not just about policy. It's about people, real lives, real kids, and real families. It's about a trans teen in Charleston who's afraid to go to school. It's about a black trans woman in Columbia trying to access health care. It's about parents fighting to keep their families whole in the face of a government that wants to tear them apart. And it's about whether we, as a nation, are willing to uphold the very values we claim to believe in: liberty, equality, and justice for all. Because here's the truth. The attacks on trans people, they're just the beginning. The same lawmakers targeting us are going after abortion rights, racial justice, immigrant families, and democracy itself. They're testing the water with trans lives. And if we let them win, if we meet their cruelty with silence or compromise, no one is safe. So let me speak now directly to our elected officials, especially the ones who say they stand with us. We don't need your sympathy. We need your spine. We don't need leaders who calculate risk. We need leaders who take them. Because if a trans kid can show up to school every day despite the bullying, despite the bills, despite the fear, then you can show up for them with courage in your voice and justice in your vote. And to our opponents, let's be clear. You can pass your cruel laws. You can try to bury us under fear, under shame, under silence, but we are not going anywhere. We are building power in every corner of the state in this country. We are running for office. We are organizing our neighbors. We are showing up in courtrooms, in classrooms, in county council meetings. We are creating networks of care, mutual aid, legal defense funds, community healing spaces, because we know that when systems fail us, we still have each other. You can't erase us. You can't scare us into silence. You can't legislate away our humanity. We are artists, parents, faith leaders, veterans, nurses, students, and above all, voters. Nearly 30% of Gen Z identifies as LGBTQ, enough to win elections. So let us be the generation that did not bow to fear. Let us be the people who choose love in public. Let us be the movement that made the South not just more progressive, but more whole. Because if love is radical, then we are radicals. If truth is revolutionary, then we are revolutionaries. And if justice is our mission, then we will not stop until it belongs to everyone. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Zoe. Very well said. And the second veteran, as a matter of fact, who has spoken today, along with Sam. Sam had to run back to the fort. But next up, he's been here many times before, especially right out there on the street every Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, David Matos with the South Carolina Peace Resource Center.
Thank you, Bill. My name is David Matos with the Carolina Peace Resource Center. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that is a voice for peace and a resource for nonviolent change. Nonviolence is one of our core principles for our organization. And we have been out here every Saturday in front of the State House protesting an ongoing U.S.-supported, armed, and fueled genocide that's unfolding in Gaza for almost 2 years now. We invite y'all to join us 11 to noon every Saturday. This needs to end. It should have ended a long time ago. Here today to honor John Lewis, a champion of nonviolence. In the tradition of Gandhi and MLK, John Lewis was on that march and crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge into the face of knowing that they were going to be beaten by state troopers and men on horseback. He had his skull fractured. Nonviolence is not passive. It is not the path of cowardice. It requires courage and commitment and sacrifice. And John Lewis paid that sacrifice. He thought he was going to die. Instead, he was triumphant when he was elected to Congress that perfected the moral revolution that the civil rights was in our country. And he continued to call for good trouble, necessary trouble, participating in Congress, in sit-ins and demonstrations at the end of his life against gun violence. And we do have a problem with violence in the United States, and we have to recognize that. And that's what we're seeing come out now with Trumpism and authoritarianism. We have to go back to MLK. For Carolina Peace, a foundational document is his Beyond Vietnam speech, A Time to Break Silence. And in this speech, that was at a time of crisis like we have now, where our nation was in so much crisis, in 1967, he warned against the giant triplets of militarism, racism, and extreme materialism. And let me explain what extreme materialism means. When he warned against that, he meant about valuing profits and dollar bills over human lives. So, he also warned in the speech that if we did not have a radical revolution in values, we would be marching for another 50 years. And unfortunately, we have to perfect the revolution in values. We have to deal with this problem that we have as a country. And we're seeing it come out again with the problem of Trumpism and authoritarianism and a right-wing backlash and racism against immigrants and violating our own Constitution and moving toward authoritarianism and autocracy. We have to continue to be out there with good trouble. But we also have to recognize that we have these problems. We have to value human lives abroad and at home. Too many wars, invading Iraq for no good reason, helping Saudi Arabia bomb Yemen, and now helping Israel perpetrate the genocide in Gaza. We have to stop this, we have to fight this. And with this big, beautiful bill, we have $1 trillion now in the military budget. We're going to be spending more and more and more on military budget. At the same time, cutting our support to the most vulnerable, cutting health care and food aid to the most vulnerable people among us. It comes at the expense of them. When we're spending so much on weapons and war and killing people, it comes at the expense of taking care of our own people. So we need to change that now and start valuing our own people and valuing human life abroad, at home and abroad. We have to do that. We have to have that revolution. We have to confront the problem of militarism, spending more and more on weapons, thinking war is an okay thing to do. Not a last resort, but a first resort. We have to confront that. Even here in South Carolina, and I'll tell you, here in South Carolina, our politicians will line up double quick to support a new nuclear weapons facility at SRS to bring billions of dollars, but they don't want to spend billions of dollars on expanding Medicaid that will help out our economy and provide medical care for so many people who need it here in South Carolina. Shame. We have to change that. We have to win that. So, I'm going to wrap up and keep it simple. It's a long struggle. It requires commitment. It requires courage. And it requires sacrifice. Nonviolence is not passive. And we need to continue doing it until we deal with the authoritarian problem we have now with Trumpism. But also, we have to deal with these problems that have been festering in our own society. We have to take care of human beings. We have to take care of valued human beings abroad and here. We have to stop the militarism, we have to stop the racism, and we have to stop the extreme materialism. We have to heed MLK's call. Thank you for being here. Continue making good trouble, and continue making necessary trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted Meadows with the Carolina Peace Resource Center. Next up, Christine Simmons. Come on down. She's with the Soda City Dems, and I think they have a tent right over there, don't they?
Yeah. We do. We have a booth right over there. I am Christine Simmons. I'm the proud founder of Soda City Dems. Our mission is to educate, engage, and empower. So if you're interested in education, not misinformation, engagement, the good trouble, and empowerment, finding your voice and learning how to use it, we welcome you. You can find us on Facebook or me at the table right over there. And I'll tell you what, I'm fired up, because we once again are here to fight for our freedom to vote. We gather here today to honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis, a man who shed blood for our right to cast a ballot. And we are here today. If he were here today, he would tell us, do not get weary, get to work. Because today we are facing a dangerous new threat. The SAVE Act, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, being pushed by extremists in Congress. So what does it do? The SAVE Act would require every single voter to show documentary proof of citizenship like a passport or a birth certificate or naturalization paperwork just to register to vote in federal elections. Let's be clear. It's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. In fact, only 1 in every million votes cast in the U.S. in 2020 were even suspected of being from non-citizens. This is a solution in search of a problem. It is not about protecting democracy. It's about suppressing it. Here in South Carolina and across this country, this law would hit young voters, elderly voters, low-income voters, black and brown communities the hardest, and especially those who don't have access to expensive or hard-to-obtain documents. Over 21 million Americans don't have a passport. Around 7% of eligible voters lack ready access to proof of citizenship. That is millions of eligible Americans who would be kicked off the rolls and blocked from registering to vote. This is not just another policy disagreement, folks. This is a full-on assault of our fundamental right to vote. But here's what gives me hope. You do. All of you. The people who showed up today. The people who are ready to fight back, just like John Lewis did. So here is what we are going to do. Check your voter registration at vote.org. Call your members of Congress and tell them to oppose the SAVE Act. Educate your friends and family about how dangerous this bill is. And most of all, we are going to show up in every election at every level. As John Lewis said, the vote is precious. It's the most sacred. It's the most powerful, nonviolent tool that we have in the democratic society. So let's use it. Let's protect it. Let's raise our voices until every single voter is heard, every ballot is counted, and every attempt at voter suppression is shut down. Let's get into some good trouble. And let's make damn sure they know that we are not backing down. Thank you.
Oh, it was beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Christine. Ted's right down there. Soda City Dems. Next up, the gentleman who's had some appointed words with us a number of times before. He's an environmental activist. Come on up, Kevin McKinley. You know, funny enough, it was raining here a few minutes ago for just a few minutes. I don't think it was raining out there. It was, okay. Kevin says it was, but it was a very small shower, and that happens. Thanks for being here, Kevin.
Good afternoon. And my notes just disappeared on my phone, but I'm going to try to do the best I can, speaking extemporaneously. I am Kevin McKinney, as William said. I'm the co-chair of the Social Action Committee at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. We have a nice little table set up over there, and if you need water or want to stand in front of that, well, the fan ran out of water, but it's still a fan. If you want to get a little cooling, we might be able to help you out, or if you're curious about us, that's cool too. All of that said, my comments today are my own. In case I say something dumb, it's not on the congregation, it's going to be on me. I don't know what you woke up to this morning, but in our case it was Jeffrey Epstein, right? The talk of the day. I don't know why someone who hung around with him would be worried about releasing those amazing files that supposedly are out there and that are causing so much consternation amongst our friends across the aisle, I will say. But you know what? While I'm all for transparency, bring them on, release them, that's great. That's really just a distraction, isn't it? All the stuff we've heard of today, and more, is way, way, way more important. For example, PEPFAR, the AIDS initiative started by President Bush over 20 years ago, is under threat. That means that about 20 million people right now are not necessarily getting the AIDS medication that they need each and every day to stay healthy. 20 million people, right? So that's AIDS. We've heard eloquently about the erasure of our trans brethren, sistren, and non-gendered siblings. It's unconscionable. It's cruel. It's immoral. Trans rights are human rights. We've heard about the assaults on healthcare, and they run deep and they run broad. I'm not even going to do much more than scratch the surface. But I'm going to say it plain. Abortion care is healthcare. When women cannot get timely care, timely pregnancy care, some of them are going to die, and in fact, some have died. We have a number of cases that are documented. This is unconscionable, it's immoral, it's wrong. It's also profoundly stupid. But let's just go with the immoral and wrong. So we've got attacks on healthcare from that angle. We've got attacks on healthcare because, yeah, RFK is running vaccine policy in this country. What else could possibly go wrong with public health? Last time around, the Trump administration was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans due to COVID and the mismanagement of that epidemic. Currently, we have measles coming out of control. COVID is once again spreading, and we have an administration that is peddling still misinformation and is not being transparent with what's happening. Our public health is at risk. Our vaccine programs are at risk. Research on those programs is at risk. Whatever aspect that MAGA wants to make America great again, our public health sure ain't it. So there's that. There's public health. There's peace and war. Well, Dave's already spoke to that. I'm going to let that one slide. But one thing that doesn't get talked about in this beautiful bill, and it's kind of my alley, I'm going to talk about it, is the environment. One of the things the big beautiful bill, quote unquote, I call it the big bad betrayal because I think that's a better descriptor. One of the things it did was basically start the process of eliminating most of, or at least a large fraction of, the initiatives that were put into place under President Biden to actually address our carbon emissions problem in this country. Right? So permitting has been inhibited by having a very short timeline imposed on them. It's going to make it a lot of programs that we're going to build green energy, that we're going to put people to work, building energy storage, that we're going to put people to work, upgrading our, frankly, creaky transmission grid. All those programs, a lot of them are going away because of this. One organization said it might cost us up to 840,000 jobs over the next 5 years. So, that's one of the things about the big beautiful bill. And I'm going to end with one more thing since we're here in South Carolina. Now, if I say the names Hugo and Helene, everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? Helene wasn't even a year ago. 50 South Carolinians died. We took, I don't know, I think it was about, my notes went away on me, so this may be a little off, but what, $1.5 billion in economic loss, with the country as a whole taking $87 billion in economic loss. That's what we're on constantly in danger of. We're in hurricane season now. So what is the Trump administration doing about this? I'll tell you exactly what they've done and are doing about it. They're cutting those mitigation efforts, so they're making the problem worse, effectively. And in addition, they're making it harder to cope with it. One of the things that had got a lot of coverage is the Defense Department is actually a prime source of information on hurricanes because they have the best microwave satellite instrumentation. Guess what? Pete Hegseth has decided that's not lethal, so therefore he is directing the DoD to stop sharing that information with the Weather Service and NOAA. So that means that those satellites, they could actually literally peer into the heart of a hurricane night or day, no matter what the cloud cover, and they could let people see what was going on inside that storm. Well, that ability is going to be degraded by about 50%. You notice me wearing my glasses up here? Well, this is what Pete Hegseth just did. He took the glasses off of our satellite sensing for hurricanes. So, making America great again? I think not. What else is happening? Well, one of the harrowing stories out of Hurricane Hugo all those years back was when a Hurricane Hunter plane flew into Hugo, right into the heart of it to take measurements, and lost an engine. Can you imagine being in the heart of Hurricane Hugo and suddenly one of your engine goes down? Well, they escaped. It's one of the fascinating and scary stories out of that time. But the Trump administration has ensured that that will not happen again. And you know how they're doing that? Because those cuts eliminated the leadership of the Hurricane Hunter program in hurricane season. And you know what else they're doing with that? There is zero budget for that going forward in the proposed White House budget. Zero funding for the Hurricane Hunter program. So we're not going to have the microwave sensing. We're not going to have the hurricane hunters, and a lot of other staffing issues because of DOGE and because of ongoing cuts that are related to the budget. They are going to degrade our services in multiple other ways. So this is yet another way in which Americans and others are going to die because of the reckless, feckless, irresponsible, cruel, and incompetent actions of this maladministration. Now that's not an official policy view, that's my views, I did say that. And I say it because I'm starting to get a little carried away up here. So I'm going to close by saying one thing. and that is to endorse what's been said before. This is not a sprint. We're not going to change anything today, concretely. We lift our own spirits. I am so encouraged by everything I've heard and seen before this. But we're going to have to do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And I can tell you one thing about the UU. We will keep doing that. We will be here as long as is necessary, and as long as we possibly are able to do it, because this is essential. Two more things. Midterms, I'm sure we'll have those. I hope we'll have a presidential election 2 years after that, but I'm sure we'll at least have midterms. Vote! Talk about it. Organize. Get together. You cannot do this alone. We are not doing it alone here today. We are together. Do everything you can in that time frame, and do it again in 2028. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Much love from all of us at the UU.
All right, man. Thank you, Kevin. That's a lot. That's a lot to talk about there. Unfortunately. Well, y'all, I'm the last speaker, so if you were thinking about leaving soon, you have the opportunity. We really appreciate you staying through this. Coming out at 11 o'clock on lunchtime, before lunch, on a Thursday. Pretty good crowd. We had a couple hundred people here today. Very nice. Well, I'm going to say a few words on behalf of the Alliance for Retired Americans. This is absolutely insane. You know what an idiocracy is, right? An idiocracy. Well, I think we've got one. It looks like the leadership is just gone out of their minds. This is the largest cut to health care in the history of the United States. And they tried to just slip it in there, just right out of nowhere. We knew that he was bad news, but for this to happen, and on top of that, you're talking about $3.3 trillion deficit, all at the same time. It's absolutely insane. We're talking about $500 billion from Medicare, and just under $1 trillion for Medicaid. Elder Americans are the people that are going to be most hurt by this, and children. That's absolutely insane. And 4% per year, starting in 2027. And over the next 10 years, it's just going to go higher and higher and higher. You're talking about higher co-pays for doctor visits, higher co-pays for drugs. And you're also talking about many doctors who will just cut it out. You're talking about hospitals and doctors who are going to stop helping people who have Medicare and Medicaid because it's just not going to be as profitable for them. And it's not very profitable now. I've heard doctors say that they weren't sure why they carried it. And that's now. Just think when they start cutting it. There's something called the new orphan drug loophole that I was just learning about here, thanks to the ARA. Now that loophole will prevent Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. Now what? Why would you want to do that? Well, because it means more money in the pockets of corporations, big pharma, just for the higher cost drugs. It protects the pricing monopoly of drug corporations. Medicaid is going to be cut $930 billion. 5.6 million Americans who need it for home health care are not going to have it. Close to 1 million American seniors who depend on Medicaid for their nursing home care. What are they going to do? The Affordable Health Care Act is also being cut. Now that's not seniors, folks. That is, Obamacare. And you're talking about 4.2 million Americans who are going to be affected by this. I have had Obamacare myself. I'm grateful for it. It's saved me. I have helped 6 or 7 people get on it. When I was in between jobs and working on a contract basis, it's essential. 17 million working adults. 17 million working adults will eventually lose their health care because of that alone. You're talking about closing 300 to 400 hospitals, rural hospitals, okay? Closing up to 400 rural hospitals because of these cuts. How is that going to affect people across the country who need health care? You're talking about 1 in 4 nursing homes. 1 in 4 nursing homes in this country being shut down because of these cuts. 1 in 4 nursing homes. These senior citizens who worked so hard their entire lives supporting this economy, had kids who went out and got jobs and supported this economy. And what's going to happen to them now? At their most vulnerable place in life, where they finally have a chance to retire, and then they need help and they have to go for either home health care or nursing, the American government, the mean SOBs up there, they're trying to just dump them out on the street. No, not our responsibility. At their weakest point in their lives, when it's time for them to relax, just doesn't make any sense. SNAP benefits, 6.5 million seniors are at risk of losing their food support. You know, we're here today all because of John Lewis, and this is a commemoration that the Carolina All has done, about 4 times in the past now since Lewis passed away. Now, I want to tell you a story. I don't know if you know this. You're familiar with Selma, Alabama, of course. You know that he was attacked in Selma and beaten. What you may not know is that he was beaten a number of times. It wasn't just then. Several of those times were during the Greyhound bus trips. They called the Freedom Riders. And in one particular case, in 1961, Selma happened in 65. In 1961, you had 7 blacks, 6 whites on a Greyhound bus. They didn't have any problem coming down from D.C. They stopped in all those states, Virginia, whatever, they got off. But they got to South Carolina, and they stopped in Rock Hill. And a bunch of guys beat him and the other people. They beat him. And there was a cop standing there. And he finally intervened. And that happened right here in South Carolina, folks. I think, what would Lewis say about all this? He would say, keep up the work. He would interact peacefully. He would save his energy for the fight that really matters. And that fight is in the polling place. It's in the polling place. The thing you've got to do is what? Vote! They have got to go! Every single one of them. The insane people that have put this into place, who are threatening the seniors and children of this country, they've got to go. The way to get them out is to go to the polling places, to be organized, to strategically approach this, as they strategically approach this legislation and slipped it in without America even knowing about it. They have to be voted out, one by one. Let's start with the ones in South Carolina, okay? You go back to your congressional districts, and I know there's some people from out of town and a lot of people from the Midlands, and let's work on this in a concentrated form. What's that? You got to vote them out. That's the only way it can be done. You know, curiously, one hero of mine in the last month is an unlikely hero. His name is Tom Tillis, and he's a U.S. Senator from North Carolina, and he's a Republican. But you know what? He was the one person, the one man, who decided to do the right thing and not make the health care cuts. He absolutely refused to. He was called by Donald Trump and threatened. And you know what he said? That's what he said. He said, no, sir, I will not do that. I will not do that. I quit. If you want to work on voting me out, don't worry about it. I quit. We've got to have people in Congress who understand the meaning of those words. I heard from Lou Holtz, Coach Holtz, so many years ago, do the right thing. They have got to go. Vote them out. Let's say it. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Vote them out. Thank you. And thanks for being here. Thanks, Lawrence Moore with Carolina Hall.
I want to tell everybody how much we appreciate y'all. And yeah, get your friends. So we're going to do this again on July 26th. We're going to be celebrating.